Hello and welcome back to LPBW Update, your number one source for the stories happening behind the cameras on Roloff Farms. Today, we are breaking a story so explosive, so disturbing, it threatens to tear the Roloff family apart forever. We have been piecing together a series of insider reports and exclusive theories that point to a chilling, calculated plot orchestrated at the very heart of the farm. What we are about to reveal is a tale of manipulation so deep it calls into question everything we thought we knew about the relationships on Little People, Big World. The narrative that has been carefully constructed for the cameras is allegedly a lie, a smokescreen for a much darker reality. At the center of it all is a manufactured crisis, a fake stalker, and a desperate attempt to seize power by framing innocent people. The betrayal is absolute, and the fallout could be catastrophic. This is a story you will not hear anywhere else. The details are shocking, and the implications are massive. Before we dive into the exclusive insider reports that are rocking the Roloff world to its core, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to LPBW Update, and ring that notification bell. You are not going to want to miss a single second of this unfolding drama. All right, let's get right into it. For months, even years, viewers have sensed a palpable tension on Roloff Farms. It's not just about the sale of the north side of the property or the feud with Zach and Jeremy. Sources close to the family have been whispering about a more subtle, more insidious power struggle, one happening right inside the big house. The central figures, Matt Roloff and his longtime partner, Caryn Chandler. On the surface, their relationship has been presented as a rock-solid partnership, a second chance at love for the patriarch of the Roloff dynasty. But our sources are painting a very different picture. They describe a relationship that has, in recent times, been strained by Caryn's growing insecurity over her role and influence, not just on the farm, but in Matt's life. The root of this, according to insiders, is Amy Roloff's undeniable happiness. Since marrying Chris Marek, Amy has found a new sense of freedom and joy. She's thriving, she's confident, and she's built a life completely independent of the farm and of Matt. While this is wonderful for Amy, sources allege that it has been a source of profound agitation for Caryn. Why? Because Amy's happiness highlights a stark contrast. Caryn's entire identity, her entire world for the better part of a decade, has been intrinsically linked to Matt and Roloff Farms. She went from farm manager to girlfriend to fiance, but her position has always been dependent on Matt. She doesn't have the deep, unbreakable bond with the children. She doesn't have the shared history of building the farm from the ground up. And as Matt gets older and begins to contemplate his legacy, sources say Caryn began to feel her carefully constructed foundation starting to crack. This is where the alleged plot begins. It wasn't a sudden event, but a slow, calculated campaign born out of fear. The fear of being replaced, the fear of losing control, the fear of Matt potentially mending fences with Amy and the rest of the family in his later years. Caryn, who has always been portrayed as a savvy and strategic operator, allegedly decided she needed to create a crisis, a common enemy that would force Matt to rely on her completely and irrevocably. She needed to sever the remaining threads of goodwill between Matt and his ex-wife, Amy. And to do that, she needed to make Amy, or at least the idea of Amy, a threat. The first phase of this reported plan was subtle, almost masterful in its execution. It began with simple, offhand comments. We've heard from a source who was privy to some of their private conversations that Caryn started planting seeds of fear in Matt's mind. It would start small. While sitting on the porch in the evening, she might say, "Matt, did you see that car? The one that just drove by real slow?" Of course, Matt would dismiss it. It's a rural road, but she would do it again a few days later. "There's that car again. It's probably nothing. But it's just weird. She was creating a pattern out of randomness, a narrative of being watched. Then came the direct, albeit veiled, accusations. She allegedly began to complain to Matt about feeling unsafe on the sprawling, isolated property. In a conversation reported to us, she apparently told Matt, her voice laced with manufactured vulnerability, "I don't know, honey. Ever since the farm sale drama blew up, it just feels different. I feel like I'm a target." When Matt would press her on who would target her, she would sigh and deliver the line that was the cornerstone of her entire alleged scheme. "Oh, it's probably just one of Amy's superfans who hates me. You know how they are online. They think I'm the one who broke up the family. They probably think I don't deserve to be here." Look at the brilliance of that statement. It's not a direct accusation against Amy. It's undeniable. She's blaming an anonymous, faceless superfan. But in doing so, she inextricably links the perceived threat directly to Amy's sphere of influence. She's telling Matt, "Your ex-wife's supporters are a danger to me." This immediately puts Matt in a defensive position, making him feel protective of Caryn and resentful of the baggage that comes with his past life. He's a man who loves to solve problems, and Caryn, according to our sources, just presented him with a damsel in distress who needed his protection from a villain tied directly to his past. With the psychological foundation laid, the escalation phase reportedly began. This is where the plot moves from suggestion to tangible evidence. Caryn allegedly understood that words alone wouldn't be enough. She needed proof to sell the story, to make the threat feel real and immediate. So she took her campaign to the digital world. Our investigation has been led to believe that she, or someone acting on her behalf, created a series of anonymous social media profiles. Burner accounts on Instagram and Facebook with no followers, no personal information, just a generic profile picture. From these accounts, she began to send herself vaguely threatening direct messages. We've been told the content of some of these alleged DMs. They were never overtly violent, which was a clever move. Overt threats would trigger a real police investigation that could unravel her scheme. Instead, they were psychologically menacing. Things like, "We're watching you," "You'll never belong on Roloff Farms," and the most pointed one, "Amy is the true queen of the farm. Your time is running out." They were designed to look like the work of a disgruntled, obsessed fan. The performance that followed was, according to one insider, Oscar-worthy. Caryn would discover a new message on her phone and run to Matt in a state of manufactured panic. She'd show him the screen, her hands trembling. "Matt, look, another one. This is getting serious. I'm scared." Each message was another brick in the wall she was building between Matt and Amy. Matt, seeing these messages, wouldn't see a hoax. He would see a direct attack on the woman he loves, seemingly originating from a toxic fandom loyal to his ex-wife. His frustration and anger, we're told, grew with each passing day. He felt helpless, and his anger was directed outward at the faceless stalker and, by extension, at the person they were supposedly defending, Amy. But digital threats can be dismissed. Caryn allegedly knew she needed to bring the threat into the physical world. It had to feel like the stalker was closing in, breaching the sanctity of their home. This is when the small acts of vandalism began. One morning, Caryn reportedly went out to her car to find one of the tires completely flat, not slashed, which would be too aggressive and would definitely involve the police, but deflated. The valve cap was sitting right on top of the tire. It was an act of petty harassment and inconvenience designed to unsettle. She presented it to Matt as a clear escalation. "They're here, Matt. They're on the property. They're touching my things. What's next?" A week later, the infamous creepy note appeared. It was reportedly left on the porch of the big house, tucked under a flower pot. The note was composed of letters cut out from magazines, a classic cliche move that made it seem like something out of a movie, further fueling the drama. The message was simple and chilling: get off her land. The her was obviously meant to imply Amy. Matt's protective instincts went into overdrive. He was no longer just frustrated, he was furious. The farm, his castle, had been breached. His partner was being terrorized. The final act in this phase of escalation was a personal, almost cruel touch. Caryn has often shown her love for her rose bushes on the show. They are her pride and joy. One afternoon, she let out a scream from the garden. Matt rushed out to find one of her most prized rose bushes trampled, its branches broken and flowers scattered on the ground. For Matt, this was the last straw. The stalker had gone from digital harassment to property damage to destroying something Caryn personally cherished. It was a clear, targeted, and escalating campaign of intimidation. And every single incident was meticulously designed by Caryn, or so our sources claim, to point in one direction: an obsessed Amy Roloff fan. Throughout this entire ordeal, Caryn was reportedly playing the victim role to perfection. She would seem withdrawn, jumpy, constantly looking over her shoulder. She would talk about how she couldn't sleep, how every noise at night made her heart pound. She was creating an atmosphere of constant, low-grade fear, and Matt was completely caught up in it. He felt responsible for her safety, and his resentment towards the source of this threat solidified. He allegedly started pulling away from communicating with Amy, seeing any interaction as a potential trigger for more harassment from her unhinged fans. Caryn's plan was working. She was successfully isolating Matt and making herself the center of his universe, the person he had to protect at all costs. Now, with Matt fully convinced of the stalker's existence and emotionally primed for a confrontation, Caryn allegedly prepared to play her trump card. She needed to move beyond vague implications and provide a tangible clue, a piece of physical evidence that would create an undeniable link between the stalker and Amy and Chris's direct vicinity. This was the most audacious part of the plan, the move that would take the situation from a crazy fan problem to a direct family crisis. Her goal, we are told, was to create an irreparable rift, to force Matt to confront Amy and Chris, to make him choose a side once and for all. And she had the perfect clue in mind. Following the trampled rosebush incident, as Matt was surveying the damage and vowing to increase security, Caryn engaged in a bit of theater. She began walking around the area, pretending to look for footprints or any other sign the stalker might have left behind. After a few minutes of this dramatic searching, she stopped. She bent down near the edge of the garden, her back to Matt. There was a pause. Then she let out a small gasp. "Oh my God, Matt, come look at this." She stood up, holding a small object in her palm. As Matt approached, she opened her hand. Lying there was a keychain. But it wasn't just any keychain. It was a distinctive, branded keychain from a well-known, slightly famous bakery, a bakery that Caryn knew for a fact was located just 2 blocks from Amy and Chris's house in Hillsborough. It was their local spot, a place Amy had posted about on social media before. The keychain was the proof she needed. It was the smoking gun. She presented it to Matt with a masterful performance of reluctance and shock. "Matt, I don't want to cause trouble," she reportedly said, her voice wavering. "But you recognize this, don't you? This is from that little cupcake place near their house." She didn't even have to say Amy and Chris's names. The implication was deafening. She let the silence hang in the air as Matt processed the information. He looked from the keychain in her hand to her wide, fearful eyes. In that single moment, the nature of the threat shifted in Matt's mind. This was no longer some random, anonymous fan online. The keychain suggested a physical proximity. It suggested the stalker wasn't just an Amy fan in theory, but someone who was literally in Amy's neighborhood, someone who could be an acquaintance, a neighbor, or even someone closer. Caryn had successfully planted a seed of doubt, not just about Amy's fans, but about Amy's and Chris's entire environment. she pressed her advantage. "What if it's someone they know, Matt?" she allegedly whispered. "What if it's one of their friends who is just unhinged? Maybe they hear Amy complaining and they think they're helping her by doing this to me." Again, notice the tactical genius. She's not blaming Amy directly. She's framing Amy as a potential unwitting instigator whose negative feelings are empowering a dangerous third party. This allows her to maintain a veneer of reasonableness while still making Amy the root of the problem. The impact on Matt was reportedly devastating. He was now consumed by the idea that this threat was originating from within the family's extended circle. His mind reeled with possibilities. Who could it be? Who did Amy and Chris know that was capable of this? His anger was now mixed with a profound sense of betrayal. He felt that Amy and Chris, at best, had created a toxic environment that fostered this kind of behavior, and at worst, knew who was doing it and were turning a blind eye. The keychain became the centerpiece of the entire narrative. Caryn would refer to it often. "I can't stop thinking about that keychain," she would say. "It just feels so personal." She had successfully transformed a piece of plastic and metal into a symbol of betrayal. It was her proof that the danger was real, targeted, and intimately connected to the one person she wanted to drive out of Matt's life for good. The atmosphere on the farm, we're told, became unbearable. Matt became withdrawn and paranoid. He was constantly on edge, watching every car that passed by. His conversations with his children became strained because he couldn't talk about the one thing that was consuming him. How could he tell Zach or Molly that he suspected someone in their mother's orbit was terrorizing Caryn? It was an impossible situation, and it was isolating him exactly as Caryn had planned. She had him right where she wanted him, scared, angry, and dependent solely on her for emotional support. She was the victim they had to protect together. They were a team against this outside threat, a threat that had Amy's face attached to it, even if indirectly. The rift she had engineered was widening into a chasm. Matt was on the verge of confronting Amy and Chris, a confrontation that would have likely been the point of no return for the family, burning the final bridges and leaving Caryn as the undisputed winner in her silent war for control. But there was one thing Caryn's intricate plot didn't account for. She had underestimated Matt Roloff's instinct not just to protect, but to solve. He wasn't content to just live in fear. He was a man of action, a man of projects. And as the fear and paranoia reached a fever pitch, Matt decided he was done being a victim. He was going to take control of the situation himself. He decided it was time to fight back, not by confronting Amy, but by using technology to unmask the perpetrator once and for all. He resolved to turn Roloff Farms into a fortress, and in doing so, he unknowingly set a trap that would not catch an obsessive fan, but would instead expose the shocking truth in a betrayal closer to home than he could have ever imagined. The stage was set for the discovery and the confession that would change everything. Matt, genuinely concerned and now driven by a need for answers, made a significant investment. He called in a professional security company and had them install a brand new state-of-the-art high-tech security camera system covering the entire property. We're talking multiple high-definition cameras with night vision, motion detection, and cloud-based recording. He wanted every angle covered: the driveway, the porches, the garden, the perimeter. He told Caryn, "Whoever this is, we're going to catch them. Their game is over." According to our source, Caryn feigned relief, telling him how much safer she felt already. But inside, a seed of panic must have been planted. Her carefully controlled narrative was about to be subjected to the unblinking, impartial eye of a machine. For a few weeks, an eerie calm settled over Roloff Farms. The high-tech cameras whirred silently, their lenses scanning the property day and night. The threatening messages stopped. The unsettling incidents ceased. To Matt, it seemed like a clear victory. The mere presence of the cameras had acted as a deterrent, scaring off the cowardly stalker. He felt a profound sense of relief and pride. He had taken decisive action and protected his home and his partner. He reportedly told a friend, "See, all it took was letting this person know they were being watched. They picked the wrong guy to mess with." He saw the problem as solved, and he began to relax for the first time in months. But according to our sources, Caryn was anything but relaxed. The calm was a disaster for her plan. The momentum was gone. The immediate sense of crisis was fading, and with it, her leverage. She had successfully driven a wedge between Matt and Amy, but it wasn't a permanent break. Without a continuing threat, Matt's anger would cool, and he might even start to think more rationally, perhaps even reaching out to Amy to clear the air. Caryn allegedly knew she needed one more push, one final dramatic event to make the situation explode and force Matt's hand. The cameras were a complication, a major one, but she believed she could outsmart them. The plan was too close to succeeding to back down now. She needed an accomplice, someone she could trust implicitly, someone who wouldn't be recognized as being connected to her, at least not at first glance. And she had the perfect person in mind, her close friend, a woman we'll call Deborah, to protect her identity. Deborah was intensely loyal to Caryn and, according to insiders, shared a certain resentment towards the Roloff family dynamic, feeling Caryn was often treated as an outsider. Caryn allegedly confided in Deborah, painting a picture of her own fear and helplessness, and convinced her that they needed to stage one final incident to force Matt to take the threat seriously and confront the real source of the problem. The plan was simple. Deborah would disguise herself, approach the house late at night when the shadows were long, leave one more terrifying note, and disappear. The cameras would capture a shadowy figure, confirming the stalker was still out there and was bold enough to defy the new security. It was a risky move, but Caryn was desperate. And so one moonless Tuesday night, the trap was sprung. The motion detectors on the new system pinged Matt's phone. He was in his office reviewing farm financials. He saw the alert, motion detected at front porch. His heart rate quickened. He pulled up the live feed, his eyes glued to the screen. The footage was crisp, rendered in stunning black and white infrared. He saw a figure cloaked in a dark hooded sweatshirt with the hood pulled low, obscuring their face. The figure moved quickly, almost furtively, darting from the cover of the large oak trees towards the house. They reached the porch, placed a small white envelope on the welcome mat, and then turned to flee, melting back into the darkness. The entire event lasted less than 30 seconds. Matt's first reaction was a surge of adrenaline and fury. "I've got you," he muttered to the screen. He saved the clip and immediately went outside, retrieved the note, and called Caryn, who was supposedly at her own home in town. He told her what happened, and she responded with a convincing display of terror over the phone. But Matt's focus was now on the footage. He was no longer just a victim. He was a detective. He sat back down at his desk and began to analyze the clip with the precision of an engineer. He played it again and again. He slowed it down, watching frame by frame. He zoomed in on the figure, trying to get a glimpse of their face, their hands, anything. The disguise was good. The hood in the darkness offered almost complete anonymity. But then, as he watched the figure retreat for the 10th time, he noticed something. It wasn't about what the person was wearing, it was about how they were moving. There was a gait, a very specific, almost imperceptible hitch in the person's step, a slight limp in their right leg, causing a subtle but distinct rhythm in their stride, a kind of dip and recover motion. It was familiar. Matt felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Where had he seen that walk before? He pushed the thought away. It had to be a stranger, but the image was stuck in his mind. He played the clip again, this time focusing only on the figure's legs and feet as they crossed the gravel path. There it was again, unmistakable. His mind began racing, cycling through every person he knew. And then it hit him. It was a jolt, like ice water being poured down his spine. The limp, the gait, it was identical to Caryn's friend Deborah. He had seen her walk 100 times. At barbecues on the farm, at parties, at dinner. She had a minor but permanent injury from a car accident years ago. It was her walk. Matt felt the blood drain from his face. It couldn't be. Why would Deborah be doing this? It made no sense. He was reeling, his mind refusing to accept what his eyes were telling him. He needed more proof. With trembling hands, he opened his laptop and went to Caryn's Facebook page. He scrolled through her photos until he found a video from a birthday party last summer. He clicked play, and there she was, Deborah, walking across the lawn with a plate of cake. Matt paused the video, went back to the security footage, and played them side by side. The rhythm, the cadence, the subtle dip in the right leg, it was a perfect match. A 1 in a million coincidence was impossible. It was her. The room began to spin. If the stalker was Deborah, then what did that mean? The pieces started to click into place with horrifying speed. Deborah was Caryn's closest confidant. She would never do something like this without Caryn's knowledge. The keychain from the bakery near Amy's house, Deborah lived just a few towns over. It would have been easy for her to get. The deflated tire, the trampled roses, small acts that required access and knowledge of the farm's layout. And then, the most damning realization of all, Caryn's reactions, her perfectly timed panic, her leading questions, her constant, subtle direction of blame towards Amy's superfans. It wasn't a series of random attacks, it was a script. It was a performance. And he, Matt Roloff, was the lead actor in the primary audience, and he hadn't even known he was on stage. The feeling of betrayal was absolute, a physical blow that left him breathless. He had been played, manipulated, and gaslit in the most profound way imaginable. This wasn't just a lie. It was a meticulously constructed false reality, designed to prey on his emotions, to stoke his anger, and to isolate him from his family. The woman he loved, the woman he planned to spend the rest of his life with, had orchestrated a campaign of psychological terror against him for her own gain. Matt sat there in the dark for what felt like hours, the glow of the two videos illuminating his stunned face. The anger was building, a cold, hard rage unlike anything he had ever felt. But he knew he couldn't confront Caryn. Not yet. She would deny it. She would lie. She would twist it around and make him seem like the crazy one for even suggesting it. He needed to go to the source. He needed a confession. He needed to hear it from Deborah's own mouth. The next morning, Matt did not call Caryn. He let her calls go to voicemail. He knew he needed to be calm, to be strategic. He drove to a coffee shop in the town where Deborah worked and waited. Around noon, he saw her leave her office building and walk towards the small cafe. He got out of his car and approached her just as she was reaching for the door. "Deborah," he said. His voice was quiet, devoid of emotion. She turned, and a flicker of shock, then fear, crossed her face when she saw him. "Matt, what are you doing here? Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice a little too high-pitched. "We need to talk," he said simply, gesturing to a nearby park bench. "It's important." They sat down on the bench, the sounds of the town square, a stark contrast to the suffocating tension between them. Matt didn't waste time with small talk. He took out his phone, pulled up the security footage, and held it in front of her face. He pressed play. He said nothing, simply letting the video of the hooded figure with the distinctive limp play on a loop. Deborah stared at the screen, her face losing all color. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. She looked from the phone to Matt's cold, unblinking eyes. Her bravado crumbled in an instant. Her shoulders slumped and a sob escaped her lips. "Matt, I can explain," she stammered. "No," Matt said, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. "You can't. But you can tell me the truth. You can tell me everything. Right now." And then it all came pouring out. The confession was a torrent of tears, guilt, and a desperate attempt at self-preservation. Deborah broke down completely. She admitted it was her in the video. She admitted to everything, but she insisted over and over again that it wasn't her idea. It was Caryn's, all of it, from the very beginning. She told Matt how Caryn had come to her weeks, even months ago, talking about how insecure she felt, how she was terrified that Matt was getting older and might want to reconcile with Amy for the sake of the family legacy, how she felt her grip on him and on the farm was slipping away. Deborah recounted through her sobs the birth of the entire stalker hoax. She explained that Caryn had presented it as a harmless plan to make Matt see how much he needed her. She called it Operation Damsel in Distress, Deborah confessed, wiping her eyes. She said you were a protector, a white knight, and she needed to create a dragon for you to slay. Deborah admitted to helping Caryn create the fake social media profiles. She was the one who sent the threatening DMs from a burner phone while Caryn would sit next to her, dictating the words. She confessed to sneaking onto the farm late one night to deflate the tire. She even admitted to buying the keychain from the bakery near Amy's house, a specific instruction from Caryn, who knew it would be the perfect piece of evidence to plant. She was so proud of that idea, Deborah whispered, her voice thick with shame. She said it was the master stroke that would make you see the threat was coming directly from Amy's world. The story just got darker. Deborah revealed the psychological depth of Caryn's manipulation. Caryn had coached her on what to do, how to act. She had even instructed Deborah to trample the rose bush, knowing it was a personal touch that would enrage Matt. The entire scheme was designed to make Matt feel protective, angry, and isolated, turning him against his family and making him completely dependent on Caryn. Deborah claimed she had started to have doubts, that it was all spiraling out of control, but Caryn was relentless. She would tell Deborah that they were too far in to stop, that if they just did one more thing, Matt would finally confront Amy and it would all be over. The final note was supposed to be that last push. As Matt listened, his expression never changed. He was a statue, absorbing every word of this sickening confession. The betrayal was no longer just a suspicion, it was a detailed, confirmed conspiracy. He wasn't just a victim of a lie. He was the target of a sociopathic plot. The word sociopathic echoed in his mind, because what else could you call it? To systematically terrorize the person you claim to love, to fabricate threats, to frame innocent people, to manipulate emotions with such cold, calculated precision, it was the work of someone profoundly disturbed. He realized Caryn's entire persona, the caring partner, the supportive fiancé, was a mask. Behind it was a master manipulator, a puppeteer who saw him not as a partner, but as a prize to be won and controlled through any means necessary. Deborah finished her confession, her face buried in her hands. "I'm so sorry, Matt," she choked out. "I never should have listened to her. She can be very convincing." Matt finally stood up. He looked down at the broken woman on the bench, not with pity, but with a chilling clarity. He had the truth, and the truth was a weapon. "You're right," he said, his voice flat. "You never should have." He turned and walked back to his car without another word, leaving her sobbing on the bench. The drive back to the farm was a blur. Matt's mind was a maelstrom of rage, grief, and disgust. Every shared memory with Caryn was now tainted. Every loving word she had ever spoken now seemed like a line from a script. He thought about how he had pulled away from Amy, how he had been short with his kids, how he had allowed himself to be consumed by this manufactured drama. He felt like a fool, but underneath the shame was a growing, hardening resolve. The betrayal was absolute, but the deception was over. He now knew exactly who he was dealing with. He was heading back to Roloff Farms, back to the house he had built, a house that had been turned into a stage for a sick and twisted play. And he was going to find the lead actress. The curtain was about to come down on Caryn Chandler's performance, and Matt Roloff was ready to end the show. The final confrontation was coming, and the future of the entire Roloff family hung in the balance. What happens next is still developing, but sources say the fallout will be unlike anything we have ever seen. The engagement, the partnership, the very foundation of Matt's life for the past decade has been built on a lie, and the truth is about to bring it all crashing down. We will continue to follow this breaking story and bring you the latest reports as they come in. What would you do if you were Matt? Is there any possible forgiveness for a betrayal this deep? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure you are subscribed to LPBW Update, because the next chapter of this scandal is one you cannot afford to miss.